Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today's speaker Venu Madhurya Das will be giving us the lecture. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
All yours, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you all for joining this morning for the Bhagavatam session. We'll start with the brief Jai Radha Madhava prayer. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Nitai Gauranatharaj, 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 Nitai Gauranatharaj, Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Shyam Sundar Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Superior Stotra Satashi Grace Vedanta Samshaya Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Thank you all once again for joining this morning for the Bhagavatam session. I seek all your blessings to be able to say something of some value for all of you this morning. Of course, all the things that I am saying are nothing out of my great understanding or great application in my life, but just reading Prabhupada's purports and hearing different devotees' understanding. I'm just borrowing all those things and sharing here. So by no means this is applied by me or understood by me in any great detail. So thank you for the opportunity. We will be speaking on the Bhagavatam, verse number 14 from Canto 1, Chapter 5. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Am I audible to you all, right?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You are audible, but are you sharing the screen, Prabhuji?
I am just now sharing, Mataji. Thank you.
Prabhu.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. So you're able to see the screen now, right, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay. So it's verse number 14 from chapter 5, Canto 1. So this is still the Narada Muni's conversation with Vyasadeva. We're in that part. We'll chant the verse, translation and purport, and then we'll go further. Tatonyata kinchana yad vivakshataha pritagdrishastatkrita rupa namabihi nakarhichit kwapicha duhstita matir labheta vatahata naur ivaspadam tatonyata kinchana yad vivakshataha pritagdrisastatkrita rupa namabihi nakarhichit kwapi chadduhstita matir labeta vatahata naur ivaspadam tatonyata kinchana yadvivakshataha pritagdrisastatkrita rupa namabihi nakarhichit kwapi cha duhstita matir labheta vatahata nor ivaspadham. I request a few devotees to chant the verse before we proceed.
ततोऽन्यथा किञ्चन यद् विवक्षतः पृथक् दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः न कर्हिचित् क्वापि च दुष्टितमतिर्लभते वातहत नौर् इवास्पदम्.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
कृष्ण
ततोऽन्यथा किञ्चन यद्विवक्षतः पृथग्दृशस्तत्कृतरूपनामभिः न कस्यचित् क्वापि च धुस्थिता मतिर्लभेत वाताहतनौ इवास्पदम्. हरे
Okay, we'll proceed. Synonyms. Tataha, from that. Anyata, apart. Kinchana, something. Yat, whatsoever. Vivakshataha, desiring to describe. Pritak, separately. Drishaha, vision. Tatkrita, reactionary to that. Rupa, form. Namabihi, by names. Na karhichit, never. Kwapi, any. Cha, and. Duhstita matihi, oscillating mind. Labheta, gains. Vata, ahata, troubled by the wind. Now, boat. Iva, like. Aspadam, place. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation: whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Purport: Sri Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions of Vedic literatures, and thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by fruitive activities, speculative knowledge, mystic power, and devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. Srila Narada Deva is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva, and thus he is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else. In fact, there is nothing existent except the Lord. The Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. Pouring water on the root is the right process to water the tree as much as feeding the stomach supplies energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavata Purana, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth, personality of Godhead? The most defective part of worshipping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism, ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the progress of the principles of the Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for self-realization in eternal relation with the personality of Godhead by devotional service in transcendental love. The example of the boat disturbed by whirling wind is suitable in this respect. The diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of the selection of the object. Beautiful purport by Prabhupada. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this in the 5th chapter is the appearance of Narada Muni. So Vyasadeva, in the beginning of the 5th chapter, we saw that Vyasadeva is, after completing his literary works, he is still not satisfied in his heart. He is feeling some vacuum in his heart, and he is sitting by the side bank by the banks of river Saraswati and contemplating on what is causing this dissatisfaction or despondency. At that time, Narada Muni arrives and he addresses Vyasadeva and what is the problem. He asks Vyasadeva, what, after doing so much literary activity, why are you still unhappy? And Vyasadeva in return, he says, yes, your understanding is correct that I am despondent in my heart. He already knows why he is despondent, but taking Narada Muni as his spiritual master, glorifies Narada Muni and says, you know everything because you are directly serving the Supreme Lord continuously, and therefore I request you to enlighten me. That's how he finishes the verse number 7 of this chapter. And then from verse 8, Narada has been speaking. Just for the continuity, I'll just read the translation so that we get the picture. So Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy, which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, is considered worthless. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of a whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since all the perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? in the last week's verse, O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. In the very last verse, which was discussed by Deepika Mataji last week, so Narada Muni glorifies Vyasadeva. He says, your vision is completely perfect, you are spotless, you are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And because of your elevated nature, you can think of the pastime of the Lord in trance and produce this literature which will be helpful for the liberation of people in general from material bondage. So the verse today, Prabhupada translates it as, whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Oops. This verse, if you look at the translation, Sanskrit words, there is no word for the Supreme Lord here. There is no reference to the Supreme Lord. But the word tato, from that is the link. The verse 13 and 14 go together. So that verse 13 says, O Vyasadeva, think of the pastimes of the Lord. Vichestitam urukramasya, of the one who performs supernatural activities, and then vichestitam, various pastimes of the Lord. You can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of people in general from all material bondage. So anything else that is separate in vision from that, it's just going to simply react with different forms, names and results, and then that is going to just agitate the mind of the person who is going to read it. So that is how the two verses are linked. So Prabhupada mentions in the beginning part of the purport about Puranas. So I for my own understanding, better understanding, I heard some things about Puranas, but no, I don't know a whole lot. So for my own understanding, I looked into different things about Puranas, and few things I got from wiki, and few things I got from Back to Godhead reference about how Jiva Goswami, one of our eminent acharyas, talks about Puranas. So I'll just share a few things about that. Purana, the definition is a vast. Purana, the word Puran in Hindi it's old. Basically, the word means old in Sanskrit and in Hindi. It's a vast genre of literature. It covers wide range of topics, and it has. It's originally in Sanskrit, and also there are other languages as per the reference here. And the Puranic literature is typically encyclopedic. The Puranic texts are named after different Hindu gods like Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, Shakti, etc. And the Puranic literature is encyclopedic in the sense that it covers a very wide range of topics, from origin of the universe to gods, goddesses, kings, heroes, sages, demigods, folk tales, pilgrimages, temples, so on and so forth. The content itself is, it says, whatever the reference I was looking at, is highly vast and diverse and inconsistent from one to the other. There can be contradictions. If you just read one and refer to the other, there can be contradictions. And each Purana can has survived in numerous manuscripts which are in themselves inconsistent. So there are some missing pieces in some Puranas. There are some incorrect additions and so on over time. There are 18 Mukhya Puranas or major Puranas, and then there are 18 Upa Puranas with over 400,000 verses in them. Puranas, of course, are considered Smritis, and it's not Shruti, not directly spoken by the Lord, but Smritis. Puranas, they have been very influential in the Hindu culture, inspiring major national and regional annual festivals of Hinduism, it says, that particular reference. Their role and value as sectarian religious texts and historical texts has been controversial because all Puranas praise many gods and goddesses, and their sectarianism is far less clear-cut than assumed. So, as Prabhupada said in the purport, Puranas refer to many gods and demigods and goddesses, worship of demigods and goddesses. So, from our disciplic succession, our Acharya Srila Jiva Goswami, he explains in one of the Back to Godhead reference from his article from Tattva Sandarbha, why Puranas are essential for accessing the absolute truth. I didn't, it's a vast article, so I just took some key points and added here. But it was a very beautiful article to read from the devotee who had written from the Tattva Sandarbha. So Srila Jiva Goswami, he wrote 6 Sandarbhas, of which the first one is Tattva Sandarbha, in which he says that acquiring perfect knowledge using inference, anuman, is not valid. He has discredited that. So the only way you can get this knowledge is about the absolute is through Vedas. He has concluded only the eternal Vedas can fill that role. And then he goes on to say further that in order to understand the unified message of the Vedas, one has to take the help of Puranas. So that's how we can understand at least how Puranas are useful. So you can say Puranas, if Puranas are going to misdirect us by taking us toward demigod worship, then why consider Puranas as useful at all, right? But Puranas are something Vyasadeva and his disciples have created. But there is some value to it, and how to see the value for the Puranas is by using the Puranas to understand the unified message of the Vedas. Puranas also, there's a classification, and I don't think there is only one way of classifying. There is many probably, but the one I have heard is it can be classified into 3 groups of 6 Puranas each, of the Mahapuranas, or the major ones, of the 18 major ones. It's split into 6 group of 6 each based on the modes. The mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. In the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva actually describes which Puranas belong to each mode. Vaishnavam Naradiyam cha tata Bhagavatam Shubham Garudam cha tata Padmam Varaham Shubha Darshane Satvikani Puranani Vigneyani Subhani Vai. Oh, beautiful one, the Vishnu Purana, the Narada Purana, the auspicious Bhagavata Purana, the Garuda and the Garuda, Padma and Varaha Puranas all belong to the mode of goodness. They are all considered auspicious. Brahmandam, Brahma Vaivartam, Markandeyam Tataivacha, Bhavishyam Vamanam Brahmam, Rajasani Nibodata. Know that the Brahmanda, Brahma Vaivarta, Markandeya, Bhavishya, Vamana and Brahma Puranas belong to the mode of passion. Matsyam Kaurmam Tata Laingam, Saivam Skandam Tataivacha, Agneyam cha sad etani tamasani nibodata. Tamasani nibodata. And know that these 6 Puranas belong to the mode of ignorance, the Matsya, Kurma, Linga, Shiva, Skanda, and Agni Puranas. So that's like the classification from Padma Purana itself that is mentioned by Lord Shiva. So in that Tattva Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami says, in order for us to understand the Vedas better, sticking to the Puranas which are in the mode of goodness is recommended. At least that's what I got from that reading that article. Of course, Prabhupada, if you know, when you read Prabhupada's purport, he has quoted from variety of Puranas. He has not just limited himself to the Puranas in the mode of goodness. Now he has quoted from Padma Purana, many places, Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Skanda Purana, Matsya Purana, and so on. So Prabhupada and our elevated acharyas, they are all able to get jewels even from the literature which is considered in the mode of goodness and which is considered in the mode of passion. All of them are not just that means it's not dealing only with material in the mode of passion. It has a lot of information about devotional service. It has information about the glorification of Hari. There are goodness items also in that, but predominantly in that mode. So our acharyas are able to take gems from those Puranas and give us as a reference to substantiate the teachings that they are giving from the Vedas. But for us, from our level, at least from my level, for a common man, the important thing to understand that is that Puranas or Mahabharata and the majority of the Vedas, right? The fruitive Vedas, the flowery language of the Vedas, they say, which is recommending a lot of fruitive activities, demigod worship, and many other things directly not related to devotional service, but it will eventually lead to that. They also contain some, but these literatures, they have predominantly the other things, the different things that are not directly related to devotional service. It also contains definitely direct glorification of the Lord and or his devotees, but to a smaller degree. I mean, if you think of the example of Mahabharata, one may say that Bhagavad Gita is inside Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita is considered our primary, one of the primary scripture. It's a guidebook for our life. But Bhagavad Gita it's only 700 verses in a literature which is 100,000 verses. I believe I got the number right. It's 100,000 verses or in that ballpark. So 700 verses, it is there. It is very essential knowledge. It is there. But there are so many other social things, political things, economic things, all the other things that could be taken from Mahabharata and distract the reader into a different direction. It is not just that, just the essence only, but it is kind of inside a bigger literature which has a lot of other different things. So people who are misguided, instead of going being directed to that one goal of self-realization and one goal of Krishna consciousness, they might get branched out into demigod worship and fruitive activities, and so that that tendency to branch out goes is very much there when you are directly dealing with these literatures without proper guidance. So Narad Muni is trying to tell Vyasadeva what has to be done in order to guide the living entities in this in this Kali Yuga. What is the right way to guide? So everything has to be in relation to the Supreme Lord. In the purport, Prabhupada says, there is the exact words. He is the, in fact, there is nothing existent except the Lord. Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. So everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. He is the cause of all causes. We know that he is the, we have many references to say that he is the supreme, he is the cause of all causes. In Brahma Samhita, the word, when we chant Brahma Samhita, the very first verse we chant is Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karan, cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karan. He should be the source of everything. Everything emanates from me, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in the verse 10. Not 10.1 but 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. Everything emanates from me. I am the source of everything. And similarly, other many references one can give, but in the later part of Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, he says, Aham bija prajapita. So he is the seed-giving father of everything out there. All the living entities, he is the seed-giving father. And he is present as the super soul in all living entities. And is present even inside each atom. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. He is smaller than the atom. He is also bigger than the biggest. In Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, we have read this one where Narada Muni is talking to Prachetas. And in that, he says, Yata taror mula nishechanena tripyanti tat skanda bhujo pashakaha prano paharascha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvarhanam achyutejya. Prabhupada refers to this verse in the purport as pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body. Simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality. So we don't have to, so the way the demigod worship is not recommended, or one is educated about not doing demigod worship but worshipping Krishna directly is through this verse. In a lot of places Prabhupada refers to this, where you pour water to the root of the tree, the trunk, leaves, branches, twigs, everything will be nourished by pouring water to the root of the tree. So root is the Supreme Lord. From him comes everything. So when we offer the worship, when we do devotional service with the Supreme Lord in the center, that automatically satisfied all his, all the branches that are coming from him, the demigods and others who are controlling who are given the charge of the administration of this universe, but they're all under his subordination, including Maya, including the external energy. So by directly worshipping the Supreme Lord, you satisfy everyone. So there is no reason to go other way around. Prabhupada says that the living entities are in a diseased condition. when you're in a diseased condition, you have to be addressed by an expert physician. I cannot say that I am very learned and I am very opulent, I am very learned, I am very well settled. But when one is asked what is the purpose of their life or what is their destination, they are unable to answer. So what is the purpose of education when one cannot understand that they are in the grip of this material nature and tossed around by the ups and downs with no control over what is happening? One has to understand that. Prabhupada cites Sanatan Goswami, one of our acharyas. He was very learned. He was the most opulent person. He was working under the Nawab as his chief minister, and the Nawab gave so much opulence to him that he was one of the richest men in that time. And but he was constantly thinking, because of his the spiritual knowledge he had, he was constantly thinking, who am I and why am I suffering? And when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he asked that question first. And he gave up everything just like that. He was willing to give up everything and then go to Vrindavan under the direction of Mahaprabhu. And he lived under the tree, and there is no shelter even, begging for food. So that is the kind of the knowledge that is lacking, and that can be given by the literature that Vyasadeva is going to be providing, and Narada Muni is guiding him to do that, to address the diseased condition of the people of this material world. In the purport, Prabhupada says, slightest deviation can cause havoc. We read in Bhagavad Gita, there are so many references in Bhagavad Gita and in Bhagavatam, but I just picked a couple of them. In Bhagavad Gita 2.60, Krishna says, the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Just the thought is enough. It takes away, I think I'm focused while chanting, and then one thought comes, dwell on that thought, I'm lost. I'm far away from chanting. It takes time to again bring back. So like that, the senses are so strong and impetuous. Arjuna says later, right, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadrinam. It's very difficult to control the mind. In 2.67, Krishna says, as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So one has to be very careful in order to not have any deviation, in order to be in that vyavasayatmika buddhi, single pointed focus on the goal. In today's verse, purport, Prabhupada says, if a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of the deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada goes on to give the example of pantheism. Pantheism, I've heard the word, but I did not fully understand it. But looking at the word pantheism itself, it can be understood as you have a view that there is God, but you you kind of equate God with the universe. God is identical with the cosmos. Or, in an extension, there are varieties of ways this pantheism has been adopted, and different sects have come into being, as Prabhupada says in the purport. And a negative way of that is rejection of any view that considers God as distinct from the universe. So that is, really taking it in the negative sense, right? So this universe is God, but God cannot be distinct from the universe. It's another way of extension of this pantheism. And you can also say that the impersonalism kind of goes in that direction, that there is no form. It's just. But I don't think impersonalism comes under pantheism, my understanding. But I have limited understanding of this pantheism thing. But it can lead to confusion, and it has already led to many different branches in terms of different sects. So one who is intelligent, so what should he do? He should, an intelligent person, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 5.22, Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adi antavantah kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end. So the wise man does not delight in them. So the intelligent person knows that these sense gratificatory activities, that if you are guided by your senses and go do some activities, those are all temporary. You might get some pleasure, but it has a beginning and an end. So when he experiences that higher pleasure, which is eternal or blissful, it is not like it does not have an end, because it is directly related to the Supreme Lord. So when he has that intelligence, he does not indulge in that. In text 61 of 2nd chapter, Krishna says, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So when Krishna is in the center and our consciousness, mind, everything is fixed on Krishna, then we are considered intelligent. Otherwise, we are just in that diseased condition and acting driven by the senses and mind. So Narada Muni gives the answer to Sri Vyasadeva. He says, O Vyasadeva, in the previous verse of this chapter, which was done last week, O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness, and thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of all the people from material bondage. So Prabhupada says, if you are not liberated, you cannot liberate others. So when you are diseased, you don't go to anybody and everybody and take remedy for the disease. You go to a physician who is trained. So like that, when only a person who is liberated can help liberate another person. That's why we take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So in this case, Vyasadeva is a liberated person. That's what Narada Muni says. And now you are already having all these qualities. Your vision is perfect. In a common man who is in this material world, we have all imperfect senses. Our 4 defects are there. But Vyasadeva is considered your perfect vision. He is the Satyavesha avatar of the Lord, right? He is firm in vow, he is situated in truthfulness. And because of that qualification of Vyasadeva, he is able to give us the literature which can help us get out of material bondage. And the purport, Prabhupada says beautifully in the last few lines, such liberated persons are, as Vyasadeva, are perfect not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in oral reception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. A liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses only can one serve the sense proprietor, Rishikesha, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the perfect description of all the perfect of the all perfect personality of Godhead by the all perfect personality Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. So Prabhupada's beautiful language there. He is the all perfect personality, the Supreme Lord, and Vyasadeva is the all perfect personality to give us description about that Supreme Lord. And therefore, the literature that he is going to give, Srimad Bhagavatam, is the literature for us for this age of Kali. It is considered like the sun in this age of ignorance or darkness. The very the second verse of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, if I remember correctly, 1.1.2 is what Prabhupada in the translation writes, this beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. So that's the power of Bhagavatam. Just by the association of Bhagavatam, we can perfect our lives. The Puranas are also, even though Puranas has a lot of different things, they are also glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. We hear many times about this Purana is stating Srimad Bhagavatam as the supreme and that. So a few of the quotes from the Puranas about our Srimad Bhagavatam. Padma Purana in the section glorifying the vow of Vyanjuli Mahadvadasi. Gautama instructs King Ambarisha. What does he say? One should stay awake on that particular night and hear the scriptures that narrate the stories of Lord Vishnu and his devotees, especially the Bhagavad Gita, the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, Vishnu Sahasranamam, and the Purana narrated by Shuka, Srimad Bhagavatam. These should be recited with care since they are pleasing to Lord Hari. And then in Skanda Purana it says, in the Prahalada Samhita of Skanda Purana, in the section describing the glory of Dwaraka, is this statement: a person who stays up on the night of Ekadashi and recites the Srimad Bhagavatam with devotion in front of the deity of Lord Hari goes to the abode of Lord Hari with all his family members. Padma Purana in Uttarakhanda states, among all the Puranas, Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Lord Krishna is glorified at every step by various great sages, is supreme. So within one of the Puranas, it is glorifying the Bhagavata Purana as the supreme. And the Skanda Purana also states, in Kali Yuga, of what value are collections of hundreds of thousands of other scriptures if one does not keep Srimad Bhagavatam in his house? In Kali Yuga, how can a person be considered a Vaishnava if Srimad Bhagavatam does not find a place in his house? That's why it's highly recommended to have Srimad Bhagavatam in each and everybody's home. Devotees always recommend that. So beautifully glorifying. Puranas also are glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam nicely. As we know, Bhagavatam is said as the Amalam Puranam. I'll finish. This is the last slide I have. So Prabhupada ends the purport with the analogy of the wind and boat. In the translation also it's there. Now Ivaspadam, just like the boat without a resting place, it gets agitated. As anchorless boat will be shaken and thrown by raging wind when our mind is not anchored in Krishna. He is the only permanent. Our mind can easily get agitated by the external stimuli. I always like this verse from the Apuryamanam Achala Pratishtam verse from Bhagavad Gita. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So desires are going to come, but if we are going to just run in the direction of satisfying them, there is no end. You're always going to be in agitated state, in anxiety. There's no peace and happiness. When one is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires, one has an anchor in Krishna, then he is the one who is going to be peaceful. So, as an application point of this verse, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, he gave a short 5-minute clipping in that he says that while chanting, the application of this is while chanting, we must fix our mind on Krishna and not allow it to dwell on worldly thoughts and stimuli. This is something we hear all the time. We have to concentrate our mind on the holy name, and that's when you get the full purification and full benefit of chanting of the holy name. It is very easy to say, but very hard to do. I am nowhere near it. And I am remembering either Priyamataji or somebody had said this instance of Prabhupada being questioned by one of his disciples about, Prabhupada, tell me a way to control my mind. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact lines, but tell me a way to control my mind. I know my mind is wandering all the time while chanting. And Prabhupada says, what is the need to control your mind? Now you're chanting with your tongue. You hear the words that are coming out of the tongue. Then the mind is already automatically subordinate in that process. That is the only way you do. You don't have to separately endeavor to control the mind. For us, practically, it is a very challenging thing. Of course, it is by practice it can happen. The long-lasting peace and stability can be achieved only by anchoring with Krishna. So when we want to receive something from somebody, we go to a person who has that something, right? So when the example that comes to my mind is when Hiranyakashipu, after his thousands of years of extreme austerity, cannot imagine that kind of austerity, and when Brahma appeared in front of him, he asked Brahma for immortality. Brahma said, I don't have immortality because I am not immortal. You are asking the wrong person. I cannot give you immortality. So when you're asking something, you ask from the right person. So when we take shelter of these temporary things in this material world and ask for something long-lasting and permanent, we cannot get that. So that long-lasting peace, happiness, and stability can be achieved only by taking shelter of the permanent, who is Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord. He is the only permanent. All others are temporary. Everything comes from him. He is the only permanent. And chanting is the best time to do this anchoring, anchoring of Krishna. So it is a application point for me. I thought, it was a very nice point from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I thought I'll share for anybody who would like to apply that also. Many of you would probably be applying it already. So it is just re-stressing it, the importance of that. I think that is the last slide. Yeah. That's all I have. Please pardon me if I had said something incorrectly. or it is just by my mistake in my understanding that I may have said something incorrectly, please correct me. So thank you again for the opportunity to share. It was actually a class supposed to be given by Narayan Prabhu, because he was traveling today for his initiation tomorrow morning. He requested me to take his spot. So thank you, Narayan Prabhu. Thank you all the devotees for your patience and giving your precious time this morning. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. Please share if you have any realizations or any other points you can add to enhance what we discussed today.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhuji. It was very,
Hare
very,
Krishna, Prabhu.
very, detailed and, this one. So one question, Prabhuji, one of the things that was mentioned in the class was like a demigod worship, right? So sometimes we, worship the demigods for for satisfying our desires and something. But so what is the right motive to worship the demigods? Because I mean, Lord Shiva is he's the number one Vaishnava, right? I mean, all the demigods, they're also bhaktas of Lord Shri Krishna. So so what is the right mindset and in terms of worshipping the demigods?
Nice question, Prabhu. Very nice question. I used to have this question when I was starting in my Krishna consciousness path for a few years now. I even resisted Krishna consciousness because of the fact that they were saying, they were speaking against demigod worship. I grew up with only demigod worship. There was no Krishna worship in my life. And I know Krishna as one of the demigods kind of thing. So when my understanding, I don't know, what is the right answer, but what I've heard, my understanding is, if our understanding is correct on who are the demigods and who is the supreme, that understanding has to be correct first. When that understanding is correct, then it puts, everything falls in place. The problem in most of the demigod worship is that understanding is lacking. So you think that demigod, whoever it is the one that is, kind of supreme. At least that is the kind of conception I had. That is, all are same. Now all are equal, right? All demigods are equal, and Krishna is same as the demigod kind of. So that is the kind of, at least the demigod worship that I am used to. So when that understanding is corrected, everything falls in place. Once I know that everything is, the root is Krishna, and the demigods are all just serving him. Even when you are seeking something from a demigod, be it material or whatever it is, he is not directly giving. It is sanctioned by the Lord, but given through the demigod. So that's how, if you read Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, Krishna says, people who are worshipping demigod, they think demigod is giving. Demigod is not giving. I am the one giving. But they're getting it through the demigod. That's all. But so that understanding is missing. That's why the demigod worship is more in that more prone with the improper understanding. I have asked this question to somebody. So now that I am following Krishna consciousness, I have a little bit better understanding of who is Krishna and who are the demigods. But I still have that, because I grew up with all the demigod worship. I still have reverence to the respect to the demigods like Lord Shiva, Ganesha, whoever it is, Kartikeya. So how do when I go to a like a Hindu temple, or when I see those deities, how do I worship, or how do I pray to them? And my answer that was given is, you can pray to them. You can pray to Lord Shiva. He is Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. He's the, as you said, he's the topmost Vaishnava. So you pray to Lord Shiva and say, guide me in my devotional path. You guide me in my devotional path so I can progress and serve the Supreme Lord. And if you read Bhagavatam in the Prachetas, I believe, Prachetas, no, there was one other, I'm forgetting the name, where Lord Shiva appears, and he thinks it's the sons of Prachini Barhi, not remembering their name, and he actually gives them. He is very much satisfied with the sons of Prachini Barhi. He gives them. There is a uh, set of prayers in order for them to chant to perfect their life. So there are many places we hear about Lord Shiva telling what is the right thing to do, right? In Vishnu Sahasranam, he is telling Mother Parvati, right? Mother Parvati is asking, if you cannot chant, if one does not find time to in this material world, in a busy life, one cannot find time to chant the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu. What is the uh, alternative? And he gives Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame. So just chanting the name of Rama 3 times. Sahasranama, it's equivalent to chanting 1,000 names. So demigods are telling that. We are just not getting that message, that's all. So as long as we are praying for our progress in devotional service, and elimination of our anarthas to progress in that direction, it is nothing considered. Demigods should be respected. In many places, Prabhupada has said, or scriptures say. So that is my understanding, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Sorry
Thank you so much.
elaborate.
No, definitely. Thank you, Prabhuji. It's helpful.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I have one more question. If I can go after some other people ask question.
Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you for the wonderful reading. It's always enlightening. I always get something more out of your class. I have a small question, Prabhu. You mentioned that while we are reading, we know that Vyasadeva has already compiled a lot of Vedas and Puranas. No, not Vedas, just a Purana, a lot of Puranas, and that's when he was despondent. Then after that, Narad Muni comes and he instructs him to write about. Then I think that's when the Srimad Bhagavatam comes into picture after Narad Muni's instruction, right? So my question is, you in one of the slides you mentioned Puranas glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. So since the Puranas were already written, my question is how can the Purana can mention about Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yeah, good question, Mataji. I think the way I understand is it was put in a written form for us. Krishna says that everything emanates from the Supreme Lord in some sense. Vedas are given to Brahma by the Supreme Lord, and then it's passed down, and Vyasadeva put down the Vedas in written form. It was all only in oral form prior to that, and then he put down a written form for the people of the age of Kali. So there are many. The way I'm understanding is, at least the Bhagavata Purana as given to us was written after Narada Muni's discussion with Vyasadeva, but Bhagavata Purana already existed. Where it existed, all that I don't know, but if there are many even when even about Ramayana, just an analogy I'm saying, but Ramayana, if you go to the higher planetary systems, Ramayana has many more thousands of verses or millions of verses, and then it was split into and given to different people, and what we got is only a small portion of it. That That's what is given to us by Valmiki. At least that's the way that story is told by Amarendra Prabhu. So like that, the literature as we see, as we read today, is given after the discussion of Narada Muni. But that Bhagavata Purana already existed, is my understanding. That's why Puranas are glorifying it. But nice question, Mataji. But maybe if other devotees might have a better or different answer, more convincing answer, that will be nice. Priya Mataji or Rajeshwari Pran Mataji, if you are there.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I think Lal Gopal Prabhuji is here. He can better answer this question. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhu. Just give me 2 minutes. Please continue the discussion. I'm doing something.
Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
This question was asked by Bhupal Prabhu when we had the discussion about the Bhagavatam glories. One class I was talking about glories of Bhagavatam from different Puranas, and Bhupal Prabhu raised the same question, that how come if Puranas are written before Bhagavatam, how come Bhagavatam is glorified in previous Puranas before even it was written? So your answer is right, Prabhu, because that's what my understanding, that's what I also read, that after writing the Puranas, the Bhagavatam was written already by Vyasadeva. And we all know that scriptures are eternal too. So it was already written. And then, but I'm just sharing my understanding that the glorification of the Lord was not sufficient. And then after hearing from Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, redid it again. That's one understanding that I have. Even if we look at Bhagavatam, we had this discussion also, that how come Bhagavatam has a discussion that the sages ask the questions, Sukadeva Goswami meeting Parikshit Maharaj, and all that is written, even though it was written before then. So because Vyasadeva was also present when Sukadeva Goswami was speaking, so he went back and added that. So that's what my understanding is. Bhagavatam was already written, and then but he was still feeling despondent, and then heard from Narada Muni, and then back and wrote it. So that's my understanding. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Can I just jump in?
Yes, Prabhu.
No? So, first question, Arun asked about the demigod things. I was just remembering Rompal Maharaj on his website, the enquiries that he answers some questions. Maharaj has really beautifully answered a particular question exactly similar to this question about how do we, Shiva being the greatest Vaishnava, how do we approach, or how do we worship, and do we even have to worship the devatas? So we'll try to find that link, what Maharaj responded, and maybe we can share. I'll try to share in the Japa group. If Arun, you're still there, if you're in that group.
Yes, Prabhuji. Definitely. Thank you, Prabhuji.
That's a beautiful thing. Okay. So to understand this particular thing, I think whatever you all shared is what I'm going to say also. There's nothing different, but just want to add one point that we know that the Vedas are apurushaya, is eternal. It's not composed or written by anyone. But when you read the Upanishads, which is part of the Vedas, it's quite interesting that usually people think that Upanishad does not contain stories, but actually there are stories which leads to Upanishad, and these stories are usually conversation between a guru and disciple, husband and wife, among the friends, for example, there is a great conversation between Gargi, a woman, a saintly woman, and with a king. And there is another conversation, another Upanishad in Chandogya Upanishad called Svetaketu, as a son of another great saint, Uttaraka. So there's a conversation always happened. Now the question is, if Vedas are eternal, no one composed it, it never get destroyed, then where these names come from? That means the person would have existed and the stories and Upanishad must have taken place after that person or during that period, the person's period. Does the question first make sense before we address the actual question? Yes? No?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So the Vedas should not contain any names. If you put names to it, that means there's a starting point of someone's life which has been described in the Vedas. But we all know, we constantly hear Vedas are eternal. Vedas are not composed. And where did these names come from? So the names are there. Everything is there. The Vedas, which is nothing but coming from, which is a part of eternity, has all the detail that is needed, and the events took place as a particular period of time. So when Bhagavatam has been glorified by other Puranas, it is not chronologically a sequential thing. It's all existing. It was already existing. And the glorification was also existing. It just, we got those things in a written format now, if that makes sense. So just because there's names in Vedas doesn't mean that it has a starting point. Just because a Padma Purana or a Skanda Purana, other Puranas glorifies Bhagavatam, it doesn't mean there is a period after and before something has happened. It is all eternally present. And things took place as they are already there. That's all it is. If that can be consumed by our little brain, bird brain. Does it make sense at all, Veena Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Trying to understand. Thank you.
I have one question. When Mother Prabhu, you mentioned that those who are reading Bhagavatam on a Ekadeshi night, along with the family, they will go back to spiritual world. So my question is, when we go to spiritual world, do we recognize our family members? Because if you say we are going to recognize the family members, that means there is some problem of attachment, and we will again go into the program of my son, my wife, my thing, father, mother. So when we go back to, as a package, back to Godhead, how does it work? I'm just trying to the whole idea is to get rid of all this attachment, get rid of these things, and just focus on Krishna. Now, reading Srimad Bhagavatam in one night, I'm going to sit and read with my daughter and my wife, so we all can go back to Krishna and again go there and think about them. How does it work? And even, is that a right idea of reading Srimad Bhagavatam? That let's read together and go back to Krishna and serve as a family, take care of Krishna? That's one question. I have another question if you have time, but let's address it.
I don't have any good answer for you, Prabhu, but this is what Skanda Purana said. I just quoted Skanda Purana, first thing. When we are all working in our family, as a family member, as a head of the family, if you want to say, that my goal is to elevate myself and my family members to get out of this cycle of birth and death. So if reading Srimad Bhagavatam can achieve that, help achieve that, I mean, it doesn't have to be a package. You purify yourself, and at the end of your whatever your lifetime, you go back home, back to Godhead. That maybe it could mean that way also. Just because you read and you all have to go immediately together, I don't know if that's what it means, but maybe that's one way of understanding. I know, I'm sure you'll have a better way of understanding and sharing. I'm just telling what.
No, the thing is that, yeah, those things are all valid point. But only simple question is, after I go back with my family, do I recognize my family there or not? That's only.
To my knowledge, no, because family and all that is just in the body level. So once you go there, you're only, your soul is going. So I don't think there is any my family, my son, my wife kind of thing there.
So there will be no knowledge of such things over there to access that this was my wife and before I departed the world, or this is my daughter, this is my father. So we won't have that knowledge.
That's my understanding, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay.
Please correct me if my understanding is not correct.
No, I don't want to say correct or wrong, but my understanding is that moksha means liberation, and going back to spiritual world means you get the full awareness of everything. Your knowledge is expanded unlimitedly. Your jnana, your conscious, it is not restricted how it is restricted right now. My knowledge is restricted within my body, within these four walls. It cannot go beyond it. But the moksha means when we attain the spiritual world, there's no limitation because there is no karma. Because there's no karma, my knowledge is no more limited. It is unlimited. It expands unlimitedly. That means I should, again, this is my just an understanding. Okay, maybe wrong. That means I should be able to have all knowledge of everything, past, present, and future. But even though I have all knowledge, that not necessary, that knowledge is going to be used for, again, for the same mundane purpose that how I was using in the material world. It starts seeing not as wife, daughter, father, mother. It sees everyone as Krishna's servant. But if one wants to remember 10 lifetime back a particular parent, a father, the knowledge that the Mukta Jivatma, Muktatma has is not constrained, it's not limited. It can, if it needed. But it is not what the purpose of having that extended knowledge to know who was my 100 or parent and brother and sister. That's not necessary. But if it's needed, it can.
I see. So it achieves the same state as the Trikalagnya, like what Krishna says, I know the past, present, and future, you don't remember, right? A similar quality you're saying.
Yeah. The Jivatma that is why where the confusion comes between Advaita philosophy and other Vaishnava philosophy. They pick on to this one, therefore we are God. But not necessarily that's not necessary that because we are aware of everything, we have a knowledge that is equal to Krishna, doesn't mean that we have to become God. There are many other areas that even after getting liberated, we won't be having those things that Krishna has. We will be given access to only certain things in full, but not everything. But that's where the slight difference comes between other school of thought.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for enlightening on that. I would not have known that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Nice presentation as usual. Your sweet recitation of slokas just captures my ears and heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. One question I can ask, Prabhu. Can we strive to increase our material, material opulence, so that we can serve, we can do our bhakti better. In case like we are in a, because we are always in a state of anxiety, right? But is it okay to increase our material opulence for the purpose of, maybe we'll have more time in engaging in Krishna consciousness? For that reason, can we, try to increase our material opulence?
I mean, this from what I understand and what I have read in Prabhupada's purports, Prabhu, it's a kind of it could be like a that kind of thinking could be like a trap. In material world, we can think, like you said, by increasing the opulence, once I have enough money and enough wealth, then I don't have to spend time in this material working and all that. I can devote more time to Krishna, more wealth to Krishna. It's all very nice to, theoretical perspective, but practically, with wealth, with opulence comes other baggage. We will accumulate other baggage. There are exceptions. There are great devotees. One example that comes to my mind is Pundarika Vidyanidhi in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, where he's wearing all these silk cloths and he's having so many servants serving him, and he's sitting on this beautiful cushion and all that. But the minute he hears Bhagavatam, he's rolling on the floor with ecstasy. Not everybody can be like that. When we have wealth, why do people, like Sanatan Goswami is a great example, right? He renounced everything. He was multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever you want to call it. He renounced everything and went and served the Lord. The normal understanding, which is applicable to common people, majority of them, few exceptions here and there, is that the opulence is a baggage. It is like treading on that fine line. You're bound to fall in this material world. Maya is very powerful, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
The surrender to the Lord is the better path than let me take shelter of this, and then I'll come and take shelter of Krishna. Because of that, I don't know if that program will work that well. That is at least my understanding. If the Lord wants to give us wealth, so in case of Dhruva Maharaj, right? Dhruva Maharaj, after he finished his after he saw the Lord, his heart has become purified already. He doesn't have any of those passion of wanting a kingdom bigger than his great grandfather. He's not wanting it. He's realizing that I was going behind broken glass, but now I have diamond. But Lord still gave it to him. He had to rule for 33,000 years. And then only he went to his Dhruva Loka. So if the Lord wants to give opulence, if he sees that opulence is not going to disturb him, he will give the opulence. You don't have to go look for it. Another example I'm thinking is Sudama, right? Sudama, he didn't ask anything. He went to Krishna. His wife asked him to go there and seek some help, but he went there. He had nice association with Krishna, remembering his old days, but he never asked anything. How can I ask my friend for that? Just by his devotion, Krishna gave him such big opulence, but he didn't waver from that. Even after he got his opulence, he didn't waver from his path. So when we are ready, when we have that level of devotion, and if we need that opulence, Krishna will give. I think that is my understanding. We shouldn't go in search of opulence under the assumption that I will serve better. That is at least my thought process, Prabhu.